Welcome to In the Weeds, live on location here at the Alabama Retired State Employees Association and the Alabama Public Employee Advocacy League's conference here in Birmingham. Thank y'all for having us. Now, we've done a couple of these live on location shows, but this looks a lot more fun than usual because I can tell this crowd is knowledgeable about all kinds of, agencies within state government. They know a lot more than we ever will about how the things really run. So I'm looking forward to
I should have asked them to ask my questions for me.
That's a good idea. We'll get to that toward the end.
Okay. And we also have a very knowledgeable guest. We've never done a live podcast with a guest, so very, very exciting for us dorks.
Well, please do the honors.
We have Chairman Rex Reynolds. He is the chairman of the House Budget Committee, General Fund Budget Committee. You're in your third term now, sir?
No, really like 2.1. You know,
Just seems like
I had like eight months in there in 2018 after the special election.
Gotcha, okay. And prior to that, he was chief of police in Huntsville, so also a state retiree, which makes a lot of sense for you being here. And I'm excited to ask you some general fund questions coming up. I know there's a lot of people in this crowd who have a lot of questions about
I thought you did that all day yesterday when I was going down the interstate.
and one of these days you're just gonna stop answering the phone and I'm gonna be very, very sad. So far, so good. Thank you for being here, Representative. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you. And it is interesting, the fact that you were just honored as the Member of the Year. I really appreciate the tribute that you gave to Leanne, who's done so much for me over the years as well. That was really special. I think we're going to play some of that. Before we get to some of the more budget-oriented questions, for the chairman, I really wanted to. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about kind of the elephant in the room, and that is, while we're here in Birmingham, the shooting that just happened at 5 Points of all places, and it's we're sitting out in the lobby area, and it's just wall to wall on TV. Everybody's talking about it, obviously here, talking about it kind of all over the state, because I know that. I've heard from the speaker, I've heard from you, I've heard from others that even before this shooting happened, that crime was going to be an issue to expect in a legislative session. So let me just ask you, does this play into it? Is this the kind of crime that, especially gun crime, that y'all are trying to figure out a legislative solution for?
Well, thank you first of all, and thanks for the colleagues that are here tonight. And I'll tell you, look around and thank them for being here because they will be your ally when we go into session, so I certainly appreciate them being here. You mentioned Speaker Ledbetter. He did put a committee together actually last year and invited some of us former law enforcement. I know Russell Bedsoe's here somewhere, and Russell's been a huge asset to us when we talk about law enforcement issues. And we had already began to communicate some with Montgomery and with Birmingham and with our state law enforcement leaders throughout the state, because we felt like early on that we didn't want to just try to come in and draft legislation thinking that we could deal with an issue like this. We needed to hear from the law enforcement experts on how we could best help them. Was it legislation? Was it funding? And that conversation, it continues to go on. I certainly applaud Montgomery and what they have stepped up and done. The Attorney General's office, with the Montgomery Sheriff's Department, Montgomery PD, they formed a task force with the U.S. Marshals, and it's making huge dividends in Montgomery, and I hope to see that expanded. That's somewhere that I think the state could help them with funding, particularly with some additional officers and bring back some retirees to help support that, and some certain professionals throughout. This goes. I know we always say it goes back to the home. But we really got to look at our adolescents, what we're doing with them and how are we tracking them, particularly our at-risk kids before they own a gun or are in the streets. And I think the last that I heard, there was 59 felony arrests there in Montgomery. They have seized fentanyl, they have seized a lot of weapons, and certainly here sitting in Birmingham, I certainly hope they begin to have those conversations, kind of go that same direction. Because Russell will tell you, like others in law enforcement, it's times like this when you got to reconnect with the community. You've got to pull old warrants. You got to serve archive warrants, you gotta serve new warrants. You kinda gotta go to a zero tolerance, of crime, so, we wanna be partners. The legislature wants to be partners with these communities and see how we can help them.
There's a lot of talk about banning these Glock switches that essentially turn pistols into machine guns. But, yeah, and it's probably building support for that, but it probably doesn't stop there, right? I know there was gang legislation a few years ago, and there's been other attempts. And is that just part of trying to give law enforcement better tools so that they have the legal tools to lock people up and for longer periods if need be?
Well, it really is. I co-signed, as did Russell Bledsoe. We co-signed that Glock switch bill. And that's something that the speaker got out early on. We in our meetings, we felt like that needed to be banned. It's already illegal at the federal level. It was not a priority of the federal government to prosecute those cases. They're starting to change that conversation a little bit, particularly in the Montgomery and Birmingham area. And so we look forward for the federal prosecutor to step up and do something there. But